I'm live. We're live. All right, this is the maiden voyage here, so let's make sure that everything works, right? Make sure everything's going well for eOne Heavy Talks. We got my thing done, the whole thing here. All right. All right. We're here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to eOne Heavy Talks. So this is the first time that we're doing this on Sound Rink Live. Very exciting, new home and all that good stuff. I'm Ethan Harrison. I'm from the band Great American Ghost. We're signed to eOne, as you all might know. I don't even know. I don't care. So we're going to be doing an interview tonight with Jesse from Misery Signals, which is really exciting. I know he can. I'm pretty sure he can hear me because I can see him in like this little bubble that's down underneath me. But they're one of my favorite bands of all time. So I'm gonna try not to punish him, but I'm probably gonna punish him. So here goes. Let's punish him. Fuck it. Jesse, can you hear me?
I can, Ethan. Hello.
Oh, hello. Look at that. It worked. It worked. First try.
Yeah, I was a little bit scared about this because I've never been here before, so I'm glad it's working so easily.
Me too. And this is the maiden voyage. Like I said, this is the first time we've ever done this on Sound Rink. So I think it's going well so far, you know?
Good job, Ethan.
Thank you. Thank you, Jesse. Wow, it's really nice to hear. Thanks, man. So yeah, so I let the cat out of the bag before you were in the waiting room. But yeah, Misery Signals is one of my favorite bands of all time. I talk about you guys on interviews a lot, so hopefully you haven't heard any of those because that would be terribly embarrassing. But I'm very excited to talk to you tonight. I'm excited about your new record.
Thank you very much for your kind words, sir. I am happy to be here as well.
Yeah, hell yeah. All right, well let's dive right in. So your new record, Ultraviolet. Let's go. I'm extremely excited. I'm excited to hear the rest of the record. I've obviously heard the songs that you guys have put out. Um, but yeah, so I just want to start off. Obviously, this is a big question, but what was the catalyst to you coming back into Misery Signals the way that you did?
I just think it was just time. I mean, a lot of time went by, and then when the 10-year anniversary for Malice came up, it just seemed like it was the right thing to do for us to go play some shows. Initially, it was just sort of like maybe do Milwaukee, maybe do Edmonton, Vancouver, something like that. But it just sort of blossomed into more than that. And when that series of shows went very, very well, it was sort of hard for us maybe to not want to continue in some capacity. So initially, we talked about just writing some music, and it was not necessarily going to be Misery Signals because at that time Carl was still in. There's still a lot of I think stuff up in the air with those guys in regards to the future of the band. But after Malice going so well, we just sort of wanted to write some material, and over those couple years, then stuff with Carl didn't get fixed, I guess, and then they kind of just asked me if I would be willing to sing old songs as well, right? And I was willing, so that led us to playing more shows as Misery Signals then, and then it kind of become apparent that maybe we would just release those new songs as Misery Signals. It was a very slow progression, and kind of a strange one to be a part of.
Did you find that you like needed that time considering obviously I watched your documentary and I know that there was a lot of stuff that led up to you leaving the band. Did you feel like you had the adequate amount of time between being in the band the first time and the second time to kind of come to terms with the issues you had and obviously make amends with all the guys? Did you feel like it was the perfect time to come back? Were you like good, or did it feel even a little rushed or anything like that?
It was scary coming back in because we were, I think, all of us were fairly unsure as to how well it would go, how well we would be able to deal with one another. But everything worked out really, really well. So um, it wasn't that hard. But yeah, there was definitely a lot of insecurity, I guess, on my part about coming back. And like for me, I didn't sing metal for so many years, right? Like I went and became a teacher, and I lived in the middle of Saskatchewan where there was no real possibility for me to jam with other people. So aside from like me playing with my acoustic guitar, I didn't do anything musically really. So it was intimidating to do that, to like all of a sudden come back and try and scream the way that I had in the past after being off for so many years. But thankfully, it all worked out in my voice.
You sound great on the new record. You sound like powerful as hell.
Yeah, but I mean, that's different, right? Now we're 5 years in, and I've practiced lots. I'm back in Edmonton now, where I can practice with my old band and my friends, and I have lots more opportunity right now to be screaming and to keep my voice in some sort of shape. Whereas at that point, 5 years ago, it was like just going from 0 to 60. So it was intimidating, and I didn't know that my voice would hold up, and I wasn't certain as to how my old body would do. But I think that as you were getting at, like, it's that time that probably, as much as I was fearful of what my physical condition could do, my emotional state, my mental state was 10 years more grown up in a good direction too. I think like I spent 10 years in university and teaching and raising my little brother and just kind of being in a healthy, good situation. So I was ready. I always missed it, man. That was my life, right? So when that was taken away from me, it was a hard thing. But I just dove right into education and being a teacher, and at least that kind of took my mind off it for a number of years. But by the time that Malice X show, those shows came up, and it was a possibility for me to go back, I was very much gung ho to do it. I've enjoyed
such
every
back. Good. Well, yeah, we're happy to have you back.
Thanks.
Isn't it such a strange thing to like that we choose to do this thing that can be so detrimental for our mental health, but also that we like miss so much when we don't do it. You know what I mean? It's like this weird struggle that we go through when we like are in a touring band. I found it very interesting. I found that your documentary probably encapsulated touring better than any I've ever seen. I mean, obviously I haven't seen a lot of like DIY touring documentaries, but I mean that one, I felt like that captured how it feels to just be away and do the things that we do. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, the things you leave behind. It's a great amount of sacrifice that artists give up. They give up a lot to be out on the road all the time, and just like I guess like someone who plays sports for a living or something like that, or where I live here in Alberta, guys that go and work up on the rigs for a month or 2 months at a time, like your job can be tough. And I think in our situation, when you're so passionate about something, like, if you were 6, 7, 8 years old wanting to be a rock star, that doesn't really go away, right? And like, even if you're busting your asses and you're broke and you're sleeping in vans or sharing hotel rooms with 6 dudes or whatever, it's like, it's what you want, I guess. So it's worth it. Once you're that 30 minutes or 40 minutes or hour on stage every night makes the whole thing worthwhile. So that, Malice X showed me that, like, it is as tough as it was. Certainly, like, that hour on stage every night was just life altering, was just absolutely amazing. And then to be able to talk with kids and grown men afterwards, that's why we do it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, did you find that during those shows your voice was damaged, or did you have a hard time with anything? Was it?
Yeah, so when we did that Rain City session, that was the first time I played with those guys in a decade or whatever. We had practiced 1 day prior or 2 days prior. I sang in Vancouver at just a rehearsal space and absolutely destroyed my voice because I just got so excited. Like, we're all in the room together. We're playing Summer. It was just like
yeah,
my ass off. But we didn't have a good PA. We were just like in this crappy studio. So I absolutely blew my voice out. The next day, I'm just like gargling salt and drinking as much water as I can and running. And so when we did that Rain City session that morning, like, I had no voice. So I was just like, I don't even know, guys.
Sick.
If I can do this. So yeah, welcome back.
Yeah. Great. Yeah. It's it's the low PA, man. The low PA blows your voice out. That's what always screws you.
Yeah.
Like, if you get a quiet PA, you're screwed.
Yeah, I agree, man. It was So that was, it was challenging to come back and just try and scream like I had in the past.
Well, sounds good on the record. I mean, the two songs that I've heard, they sound very good.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like, in the studio, you can do things. Well, if you have the time, you can do things over and over and over and over. So
Yes.
even with that, even doing this record, like I went and did the first session down in Boise, Idaho with Rye. Or no, sorry, the first session I went and did stuff with Dev in Vancouver, but that was mostly the clean singing stuff. I did do some screaming. And then about a month later, I went to Boise to work with Greg and Rye. And it was like plus 40 down there, super dry. And it was a challenge for me to produce what I wanted to produce. So we only did about 5 days down there. And then I convinced Greg, like I said, come up to Edmonton, as soon as you can. I'll be at my house sleeping in my bed. And I think that's where I'm going to be able to produce the best product. And absolutely, that was for sure the case. So Greg came up here in November, and he stayed here for 2 weeks, and we basically just redid everything that I had done in Boise and finished the record here. And it was nice. I was spoiled to be able to record the record here at home.
Yeah, that's sick. Someday I'll get there. I typically go and live in Jersey. And Jersey is not a place that I typically want to live, but I make it work for a month at a time. It's nice. It's like a little vacation, It's like a little vacation in Jersey. No big deal.
It's tougher too right now, like, because I have a daughter and stuff. So like being away to record the record was a challenge. So I was super thankful that Greg came up here, and I think in the end it was the right thing for us to do, because I think everything turned out really well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna wait until we got to the end to ask Malice questions, but we're going fuck it. So I was actually curious, did you double the vocals on Malice? These are questions I've wanted to ask you since I was a kid, so they're coming out. We're doing it.
Quad track.
Quad track.
Quad tracked, and on the new record, there's a lot of quad tracking as well. So singing the same part 4 times exactly.
Yes. Which is what I do too.
Again,
like I do that shit too.
For an old guy coming back and being like, I'm going to record this new record, and he was like, actually, I'm going to record 4 records, basically, right? Like,
yes.
That comes from Dev. The first, like when we did Malice, that's how Dev has always done his vocals, just this wall of sound, and that was his production technique. So that was what he suggested early on in the Malice sessions, and I'm not going to go against Devin Townsend, and I think that his choice was the right choice. And so this time to come back to do Ultraviolet, it just made sense to basically do the same thing. So it obviously live, it's just one person, but yeah, on record, quad track most of the time.
I quad track too. Here's for anybody watching this, we all quad track. Every vocalist quad tracks. Nobody just does one track of vocals, because it would sound like garbage if you just did one track of vocals. So everybody does 4. So yeah.
And then, I mean, some clean stuff. I know with Dev, like sometimes with his cleans, he's got like 15, or like it's insane sometimes, right? The amount of tracks with cleans.
15. My God.
Yeah, with the heavy stuff, I was quad tracking most stuff. For some dynamics here and there might be just 2. But for the most part, it's basically either 2 of me or 4.
Good to know. All right, glad I could get that out of the way. Thank you for answering that burning question for the last decade.
That's Mr. Townsend.
Good to know. So was the writing process for Ultraviolet different? I mean, I know you said that you got together with the guys. Did you do it live, or did you guys do it like recorded this new version of writing where people, make files and send them to each other?
Right. So really, yeah, I mean, the whole thing was made possible by the state of the internet and the state of the world today, because Ryan and I both have children. Kyle and Stuart are very, very busy with Comeback Kid, and Brandon is a drum tech and follow boy, and is also just a very busy young fella. So it was a very different process. With Malice and the Magnum Heart, we literally holed up at Ryan's parents' place in Madison, Wisconsin for like months at a time. And then we went to my house in Edmonton for like 2 months at a time. So it was sort of like this concentrated effort of 4 months or 5 months of just writing the stuff that we had not already had from the EP, right, which was Summer. and then go to Vancouver and just stay at Greenhouse Studios, Devon, for 2 weeks and just record everything, just living there and record the whole record. So it was this very focused situation, whereas this time it was spread out over 5 years of writing, and then even the recording process was spread out over a year. Brandon did drums in Seattle at Studio Litho in January of last year, and then I started vocals in July of last year, and I didn't finish vocals until November. So it was nearly a 1 year process of recording. The writing part of it started quite soon after Malice, and that was just initially Ryan and I just like, hey, let's write some songs, see what happens. And that was just mailing riffs back and forth, like just me like emailing riffs and him emailing me finished songs, and then me trying to scream over top of it and come up with ideas. So at first it was pretty slow going. Like we wrote, I think, 4 songs in the first 2 years. And then once we completed those 4 and we were happy with them, then it was kind of like, yeah, okay, this is probably going to be Misery Signals. Let's start getting together more often. And then we would. So those guys would come up to Vancouver, or Stuart and I would go down to Boise, and we would just jam for like 4 or 5 days and then create new demos, and then go our separate ways and converse through email and messengers and stuff like that, and build the record that way. So it's an extremely different process from the Malice process, but that speaks to our life situations, our situations, where we live, and as I said before, like being fathers and not really being able to just stay together in Boise, Idaho for months at a time.
Yeah, there felt like, I mean, the feeling that I got from Malice and just the record in general musically, and also from what I saw in the documentaries I've watched, etc., that there was like a certain sense of, you guys had this like need to make that record. Like it felt, like you said, so intense, those 2 months that you lived there, and then the 2 weeks that you made it with Devon. Ultraviolet was also obviously like a different feel. Did you find that that was helpful? Did you enjoy that more? I mean, obviously it's a lot different, there was a different feel there.
I think they're both cathartic experiences. I think they were both healing experiences, but just for different reasons, right? With Malice, certainly that was a record that I just had to write. Certainly that was a record that in ways was therapeutic for me to write and to scream. And the same can sort of be said for this. I mean, it's totally different mindset this time around with Ultraviolet, because as an older dude, as a father, I just wanted to put out something more positive into the world. And Malice, I'm not saying Malice isn't positive, because there definitely is, like, like at the end of, say, In Response to Stars, like the whole thing's super pissy, but then at the end, with determination, we all carry on. Like,
yeah,
that sort of metalcore thing of like a song being really, really angry, really, really angry, and at the end, sort of there being hope. That's a common style of writing, right? I think.
Yeah.
Seven Angels did it, and Misery Signals did it. But for the most part, Malice is pretty angry, pretty dark, pretty sad. And as a father, and just as a teacher, and as an older human being, I wanted to put out something a little more dynamic, and I think a little bit more positive and happy.
That's nice. Still with really, really angry music, though. So
right.
There's balance.
That's a huge challenge. There's not a whole lot of examples out there of people that write that heavy of music with a positive spin lyrically. So I didn't have a lot of examples to look to, and that was also something that added a lot of sort of fear. And from some of the guys in the band too, they were like, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Like, how are you gonna? I don't know what you're doing here," but I think it worked.
Yeah, I think it's working well. So you would say that the big difference between Ultraviolet and Magnum of Mal, excuse me, the big difference between the two of those is that you would say Ultraviolet is a broadly more positive record lyrically.
Yeah, I would say lyrically it is much more positive. Not to say that it's still Misery Signals. There's still tons of Misery Signals, but yeah, I think that there was a very conscious effort from me very early on to put a more positive spin and a more hopeful spin on the lyrics.
Yeah. And you just feel, just because you just feel better about life, I would imagine, right?
Yeah, I just think that I didn't just go through a terrible car crash, and I'm 15 years older, and just yeah, I don't know. I'm a more calm human. It was important for me to put forth a message, I guess, that my daughter would be proud about. As a teacher, a lot of times kids come up to me and Mr. Z, what's your favorite song, or what's your favorite lyrics that you wrote, or something like that. And so with Malice, some of that stuff can be hard to show to my principal or the kids I teach or something like that, because how angry it is.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm not proud of it, because I think it is a very worthwhile record, and I know that it touched a lot of people, and I'm so thankful for the fact that I was able to create that record, and the fact that we were able to put out art that is still relevant, still important to this day. But for me to do that now at this point, if I wrote a record that angry, as a 40-year-old, 41-year-old man, like I think it'd be, if it wasn't fake, if it wasn't like me fronting and pretending to be angry and tough and hardcore. I don't know that I would be in a good spot. I don't know if that's something that someone at my age, I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm just not as angry as I was. I'm happy that I'm a more happy person, and it was important for me to put out more light into the world.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. When you were getting happier, were you worried? Were you worried about your lyrical content? Because I know that I can sometimes, like, when things are going in my life the way that I'd like them to be going, sometimes I think to myself, like, there have been times in my life where things have changed drastically, and then I thought, like, what the hell am I going to write this next record about? Like, what the hell am I going to do? And then eventually I find my way. But, like, do you feel that similar fear when you're, like, peaking in your life, when you're getting to that point?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, yeah, if I felt, how am I going to write another Misery Signals record? The band is called Misery Signals. It's literally about screaming about the hardships of life, the hard, so to come back and try and do something totally different was intimidating. Absolutely. It's a weird thing, right? Like, it's a blessing, I guess. Not a blessing. I mean, it's the death of my friends, and the end of the band that I started when I was a kid. But we took good things out of that, right? Like, we took that bad stuff and we turned it into something good, even if that record is super pissy and super angry. Good things did come of it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, it shaped, in my opinion, it shaped our genre quite a bit. So, I mean, I don't think anybody can ever take that away from you, no matter how pissed off you were about whatever you were pissed off about, which there was a lot to be pissed off about. Remember when
Yeah.
you were young, and everything pissed you off?
Well, certainly that plays a role, right? I think just age
Yeah.
or whatever. When we're that age, we're super angsty. It's
Yeah.
normal, right? Genetic. We're just at that time in our lives a little more pissy. But then that was compounded just by the fact my life experiences. I just had some terrible stuff happen to me, in the couple years leading up to that record. So we did good with it.
Yeah, of course. You're wearing a Positive Hardcore band on your shirt right now. You guys are doing it. You're carrying the torch of With Honor right now. Yeah.
That's a good example, right? But that's what I mean. Like, when you're talking about positive hardcore bands, it's traditionally like more like fast.
Yeah.
Not like what we did, not metalcore. You know what I mean? So, yeah, With Honor is one of the greatest bands of all time. I think Todd Mackey is maybe the greatest frontman.
Wow. That's a big statement here on Sound Rink Live. Big statements for our first stream. I like it. Thank you. We're gonna make news. This is gonna be all over Lambgoat.
Yeah, the goat. Good.
Whatever that is. So when COVID isn't ruining the world, how much touring do you hope to do with Misery Signals? What is your thought on that?
just because of all those obligations that I mentioned before, it's really
Yeah.
up here. This year, the plan sort of was, prior to COVID hitting, it was like, we're going to do 4 months, maybe, 4 months a year, 4 months this year, 4 months next year.
Yeah.
So for the band, for us at this point in our lives, that was a pretty substantial amount of touring. And we were all committed to doing that, and sort of like taking a break from, for me, taking a break from teaching, and for Stuart and Kyle, kind of trying to balance Comeback Kid and Misery Signals more. And for Brandon, it was like taking time off from Fall Out Boy and stuff. So there's a lot of effort for us to put this band back together and write this record, and then we hope to do a whole bunch of touring for the next couple years, but who knows now, buddy?
Yeah, we're just going to be in our rooms talking to each other on streams.
Talking about hardcore on
the internet. Just discussing who the best vocalist of all time is from a hardcore band. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, hey, I'm here. I'm available. You know what I mean? I got nothing else to do. So you have mentioned a few times that you're a teacher. What do you teach?
I went to university to be a high school English teacher. High school English, high school history. So right out of university, that's what I did for 5 years. I taught high school English and high school history. But
those are the best ones. Those are the good ones.
For a singer, it makes sense, right, to be an English teacher. I think that was always that was always what I enjoyed. So I was really happy to go and become a part of that world. But in order to get that really great job out of university, I had to move 10 hours from home and 10 hours from family and friends and such. So that was okay in the first 3 or 4 years, because you're just so busy in that profession in your first few years, getting your act together,
Yeah.
But in my third and fourth year, being that far away, it started to wear on me. And so my wife, who is also a teacher, we started to seek jobs closer to Edmonton, closer to home. And we both got jobs that were 2 hours away from Edmonton. So it wasn't back home, but it was much, much closer.
A lot better than 10 hours.
But in order for me to move, I had to accept a grade 2-3 split. So I went from teaching grade 10, 11, 12 to going to teach a grade 2-3 split class. And then the next year after that, I taught grade 6. And the following year, I taught grade 6. And then my wife got pregnant, and we said, we have to get back to Edmonton, get back to the grandmas and the grandpas and the families and such.
Support, yes, absolutely.
I got a bunch of jobs back here, and oddly enough, I got a job teaching elementary music, so grades 1 through 6 music, in St. Albert, where Stuart grew up. So right now, I actually live just like a few blocks from where Stuart grew up as a kid. So it's pretty cool to be back here. But yeah, I went to university to be a high school English teacher, and I did teach high school English for a period, but for the last few years, I've kind of been all over the shop.
Yeah. So you do music, you teach elementary music right now?
No, this year I'm just at home. I took paternity leave. So my wife took the first year off, and then this year she went back, and this year I stayed home. But that wasn't even necessarily a choice. That was like my music gig was only for 1 year. It was a temporary contract. So June last year, we were kind of freaking out because Carly didn't have a job. I didn't have a job come September. And we were just like, yeah, we're new parents, both unemployed.
Terrifying.
Yeah, a little bit. But at least we were home, like it was tough because we gave up these full-time, what they call continuous contracts, right, in Saskatchewan. If we had stayed there, we would have had jobs till we did not want those jobs any longer. But to get home, we had to rock the boat a little bit. But it's all been worth it. Carly got a really good job this year, and I got to stay at home with Mazzy and just be a dad and like ride bikes and go to the park. And it also really helped with the Misery Signals thing, because we were not quite ready with the record, right? Like I was still recording, like I said, in November. So had I had a teaching gig this year, Ultraviolet probably wouldn't be coming out this year.
Well, thankful. We're all thankful.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just thankful for the Canadian system that allows you to have paternity leave, because I live in America and that is not a thing. We don't do that.
No, I didn't get paid this year.
Oh, you didn't?
It could have been Carly or I the first year.
Oh,
Carly's breastfeeding and Carly's the mom. It just made the most sense for her. And plus, I got offered that elementary music gig, and she didn't. So it was just kind of like it just happened that way. And then this year, we were faced with either both going back to teach or one of us staying home. And we just decided, as financially tough as it is for us, it was the right choice for one of us to just be home with Mazzy.
and you get to do all the cool shit like ride bikes, like you said.
That's right. Yeah, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, fair. Fair. So what song on Ultraviolet is the most meaningful for you? I just considering that you've changed your perspective so much, I'm interested to know.
I think they're all important because it was like I said, like this 5-year process. So we wrote 14 or 15 pieces of music. These 9 are the ones that we all agreed on that were the best. So I was able to use, I guess, 9 of my best poems or whatever for those songs. I shouldn't say that. Ryan wrote Sunlifter. Ryan wrote all of Sunlifter, music and words. So 8. I take it back. What is my favorite song? It was important also on this time. It was important for me this time to do a lot more clean singing. So there's not a whole bunch of clean singing, but they're like at the end of Tempest, there's a little bit of clean singing, and at the very beginning of River King, there's a little bit of clean singing, and you'll sort of see that happen through the record. So that was important to me to push myself this time to do more than just screaming. Not to say that just screaming all the time is easy, because it is not. But being this many years on, I just wanted to push myself and to do something more. So there's some tracks on the record, I guess, where there's more singing, and I'm proud of that stuff. Some of the stuff I did with Dev, there's one called Redemption Key that is the most singing I've ever done on a Misery Signals song by far. And I think that one turned out really, really cool, really, really unique. I think lyrically, The Tempest is an important one because it deals with mental health and my friend's struggle and my brother's struggle and my own struggle with mental health. And I think that's something that we should discuss more as a society. I think it's something that is kind of something that people hide a lot of the time. And so I think that it's a good one. And I think a lot of people will relate to that. A song called Some Dreams, which is the last song on the record, which I think is a really heavy hitting one. And that's about me being away teaching. And when I was 20 years old, my mom had my little brother named Liam, and the guy that she was with split right after that. So I was kind of left to, I was kind of the father figure for Liam. And that's right as Misery Signal starts going and touring a ton. And that was really hard on me to be away from him all the time. And that was part of the reason, why I didn't like the tour so much back then.
Yeah.
When I came back from Misery Signals and did university, I lived with my mom and my little brother in the house in Sherwood Park, and it was just an amazing time to be with him and sort of help him through his when he's like 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. When I took that Saskatchewan teaching job, I lived away from him for 5 years. So Some Dreams is about me being away from him and me sort of apologizing, I guess, for being so absent for those very formative years in his life as a young teenage boy without a father. But I think it's a song that I think it speaks universal truths. I think it's a song that anyone who sort of has to go away, like I said about like dads, having to go work up on the rigs or whatever, anyone who has to be away from family and that sort of situation will be able to relate to that song. So I think that's an important one for me, just lyrically.
I'm looking forward to hearing it. Hell yeah.
Thank you.
Hey, no problem, Jesse. So I'm gonna ask you some old Misery Signals questions here.
Okay.
I gotta know, some things I gotta know.
Okay.
All right. How did you come to work with Ferret, Carl, and all that good stuff?
I think that's just on the hype of ultimately Seven Angels and the Compromise crash, right? Like
Yeah.
Seven Angels at the time, to me up here in Canada, Seven Angels was like, this they were like wildfire. They were going to be the next big thing or something in metalcore. We really 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 liked them, Jordan and I. Sorry, say again.
How did you guys come to work with Ferret?
So those, Seven Angels is very popular at that time. Compromise, gets in the crash.
Yeah.
I think, I can't say for sure, but I think that those guys were probably talking to Trustkill or Ferret a little bit prior to me joining Seven Angels. And then when we went and did the first Hellfest, getting sunned out. When we went and played the first Hellfest, Carl just asked to go and eat pizza with us. He took us out for pizza, and we talked to him, and it just seemed like it was a good move to sign with Ferret. So it was. I know that he had interest in Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, and I think that just continued on. So once we started Misery Signals, it was sort of just a natural thing that he was still interested in what they were going to do next.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carl knew a lot of the same people as us, and I think I have to mention Every Time I Die, because Every Time I Die was recording. It wouldn't have been Hot Damn yet. They were with Carl around that time, and that's right when our EP came out. And I know that Andy was just playing our EP a ton and saying, like, you got to sign these guys, right? So Andy Williams was a big supporter of the band early on, so we have to say thank you to Every Time I Die. They took us out on some early tours that were definitely important and beneficial to us. And yeah, I think they actually played a pretty heavy hand in getting us signed to Ferret, or at least getting Carl further interested in us.
I give that band a lot of respect for having that, playing that role consistently. Like Andy was a huge proponent of my band, like when we first started, and that was what, 12 years later, like they've all just always been like that. So I give Every Time I Die a lot of credit for being that way and maintaining that,
right,
throughout the entire time they've been a band.
Yeah, thank you, Andy.
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure you're watching, Andy Williams, so thank you.
He's wrestling.
Yes. He's definitely wrestling at some point. I just assume he's always wrestling. So when you were writing Malice, did you have like a feeling about it at all? Did you kind of understand like what you guys were doing and how it was going to shape things? I mean, I know that I'm not trying to make you sound egotistical, because that's the last thing I want to do. But sometimes when you're writing music, that it's special. And I'm curious to know if you felt that way about Malice.
Man, I don't know. It's you.
Yeah.
It's you. I felt passionate about what I did in Compromise, and I think that I felt that like we were doing good things. And like I said before, Seven Angels was this band that we really looked up to, and I thought that those guys were doing good things, especially musically. So when we started writing music together, and when we wrote the EP with Jeffrey, it's like Lie Captive. It's still one of my favorite songs that they wrote, like Summer. There's a couple really special songs I think that we wrote right early on. So yeah, I mean, I think we recognized that there was something special going on. I think Brandon is a very special drummer. I think Ryan's a very special guitar player. I think when all five of us got together, you could feel that there was something of worth happening.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of that stuff, though, right? Like a lot of some of those songs we were writing right up until we went to record. So like In Response to Stars, there's no demos for Victim a Target. And when Victim a Target, it wasn't until the last couple of weeks where I actually wrote the lyrics over top, because for a long time it was maybe just going to be an instrumental intro or something like that.
Yeah.
And then also having Dev involved, right? Like being a big Strapping fan, being a big Ocean Machine fan, I knew what Dev could bring to the table, what he could bring out of us. And when some of those things started to come to fruition, say like the clean singing, like the
Yeah, that was the first time I had ever heard anything like that. That was wild.
That, you know, when that stuff was coming about in the studio, certainly, you know, there was chills, there was goosebumps, there was a recognition of, holy, you know, we're doing something cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's not like an egotistical statement. It's legitimately just like when you're writing music that you really believe in, you can feel it. It's like it's happening, and you don't think you're going to be the biggest band in the world because no one actually thinks like that. But you think like, wow, like this means something. This means a lot to me, you know.
Yep.
A Victim of Target, one of the best opening songs of any record I've ever heard. So just for the record, it's a great opening song.
Thank you.
And yeah, of course, that now that I know something about Devin Townsend, because when I was young, I had no fucking idea what was going on. But now that I know what Devin Townsend does, those like clean vocals in the background makes perfect sense. Very Devin Townsend.
He's the guy.
He's the guy. He's the guy. So how does it feel when you hear, or when you were teaching, when you spent the 10 years away from Misery Signals, how did it feel to start hearing bands that you could hear that you had influenced, you know, like that Misery Signals had directly influenced? Was that something that made you feel like you did the right things? Like, did you feel good about that, or how did you feel about that?
You got to remember, like, Poison the Well did what we were doing a long time before us, and Shai Hulud was doing what we did a long time
Shai was closer. Shai was close. Yeah, that's a good point. Fair.
So I don't know.
So you're not going to take any credit for it, huh? You're not going to take any credit. That's very, no, that's good for you. That's very kind of you.
If there's anything we did, it's that adding in of metal, right? It's like that Devin Townsend stuff. It's like we weren't necessarily trying to be a hardcore metalcore band or a metal band. You know, we just wrote the music that we liked, which was definitely a sort of a combination of metalcore and metal and hardcore stuff. If there's anything that I will say we did, is that we got Devin Townsend involved, and he sort of changed us from just a metalcore band to maybe just a heavy metal band, and in doing so, like, added some layers that might not have been there had we not had Dev involved from early on.
Yeah. When you started singing and
lyrically, vocally, you know.
Yeah.
Daniel from Zayo was doing stuff that I do, you know, like it's reality based. I think Jeff, his talking parts in Opposite of December are just like super influential on the style of metalcore singing that I do.
Yeah.
Geert, you know, like the second singer in Shai Hulud, I think is that's a trendsetter. That's someone who I think was doing things that I can't think of anyone singing like him prior, with all the sort of talking into screaming.
Yeah.
You know, what kind of Slipknot eventually would do as well. But like, there's examples of people doing that stuff prior to us. I just think that we maybe brought a whole bunch of that stuff together, and it was I don't even know if it was conscious a lot of the time, right? It was just like, yeah, we like these bands, and then let's try and make a record that sounds like a combination of all these things.
Yeah, you end up making a thing that is a amalgamation of all the things that you like the most, right? I mean, that's kind of what we all are. That's all that we all do, right? Yeah. And it's kind of just a matter of like trying to make sure that you don't rip it off enough that anyone notices. You know what I mean? That's really the goal of being in a band. So when Compromise got into the accident and you joined Seven Angels, can you just describe kind of what it felt like to sing for one of your favorite bands? I mean, just to join one of your favorite bands. I mean, it had to be quite bittersweet in that situation, I can only imagine.
I was just like a total mess at that point, right? Like I came home for maybe 2 weeks or something, you know, in between the crash and when I went to join those guys at Hellfest. So I went and met them at Hellfest, Timo at that point, the original singer who had come back and was on the tour with us when we got in the crash, because the crash freaked him out so much, Timo quit. And then they have this big Hellfest gig coming up, so they get Nixon to come back and sing, which I was happy about because I love Matt Nixon as a singer, so I was happy to go and see him sing. But it was super intimidating and crazy time in my life. Like I was emotionally as unstable as I've ever been, and I'm going to America to join not only just a band, but like kind of a Christian straight edge band, and I'm not Christian, nor am I straight edge. So
yeah, there was that, like, I remember that undercurrent of that whole time. Like, was Misery Signals a Christian band? And I remember being like, nope, I don't think so. Not from what I'm hearing, I don't think.
None of those guys were. It was Matt Matera and Jared Logan that were the super Christian guys in Seven Angels. But in that band, it was largely Jared that sort of run the show. So it was an intimidating situation to walk into for a meat-eating Canadian punk rock kid. You know what I mean? Like you're joining.
Yeah.
Some of them are vegan, some of them are straight edge, some of them are Christian. Like they all have pretty strong opinions on these things.
Yeah.
So it was a trip, you know. And I go to Hellfest, and I'm seeing not only Seven Angels, but all these other bands that I've just adored. There were literally pictures on my walls just weeks prior or whatever. So it was it was an amazing thing. It was really, really cool, really, really scary. And we just jammed in Racine, where Kyle and Jared are from, for a while. And I played one show down there where Mixon sang some songs and I sang some songs. And then we went, and the only show I really played with them where it was just me singing was Furnace Fest. And so intimidating, like, and not only was, you know, Furnace Fest obviously just this really cool festival that I'd always wanted to go to, but it's in Birmingham, Alabama, where the crash had occurred, you know, so just all these weird things that had come together. And for me to be playing at Furnace Fest in Birmingham, Alabama with Seven Angels, Seven Plagues, weeks after the crash, I don't know, it's weird.
It's weird, but I mean, I don't know. I don't believe that things are meant to be, but if I had to be convinced that things are meant to be, that would be a pretty good way to start. Like that seems, I don't know, that seems very very meant to be. So I just wanted to ask, obviously you kind of went over the common threads between the two records, but like if you had to pick a common thread to go through Ultraviolet, just one theme that goes through the whole record, what would it be for you lyrically?
Well, there is a lot of references and allusions to the Icarus myth. Like Ryan wrote Sunlifter, and I really think that's a really good song that he wrote. I think the lyrics are really, really good in that song. And I found that as I was writing, you know, at least the first 3 or 4 songs afterwards, a lot of stuff sort of like touched back upon Sunlifter, or there was references to Icarus or flying too close to the sun. So once I recognized that, I just sort of tried to shape the record more in that way. It's not a thematic record, but it definitely touches upon the Icarus myth and the desire for us to have success, right? Like that Some Dream song, it's talking about sometimes how our desires are what we want in life, whether that's with work or playing in a band or whatever. Sometimes how that takes us away from our families and such. There's a lot of that on the record as well. I think sort of like trying to balance art and life and trying to sort of deal with still wanting to play in a rock and roll band when you're 40 years old, and sort of how do you achieve that?
Yeah. What band made you want to live in a van? What band made you want to make this terrible life decision that we have both made?
Where I'm from here in Edmonton, there's 2 bands that I really liked growing up that were, you know, independent bands that kind of started to do well when I was a kid. So SNFU is a punk rock band that I really, really loved when I was a little kid. I still love now. And their singer just passed away the other day. So Chai Pig and SNFU were very, very influential on me as a young skateboarding kid, and sort of seeing that even if you came from this small Canadian city, if you pushed hard enough, you could make some waves in the music world. It really was a possibility, right? You didn't have to be Bryan Adams in Canada to do something. And there's another band from here called The Smalls that I was closer with because I just absolutely adored them. And so I'd always just hang around. And sooner than later, I became friends with them and I would sell t-shirts for them. And then when I was like 15, 16, they would start taking me on tours, on such short runs, like around BC, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. So that's probably the greatest catalyst for me wanting to do music, was me being able to see the Smalls have success and create important, good music and do that from a small Canadian city.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're a punk rock dude?
No, I'm not, which is very funny. I'm very much a heavy metal guy. My folks are super into music, so as a kid I was exposed. My dad like loves the Stooges and Iggy Pop and the Clash,
dude.
Bowie, that kind of glam rock and early punk rock stuff. My dad was is super into still.
Yeah.
So I was exposed to a lot of early punk rock, but I was exposed more to like Bob Marley and David Bowie and Lou Reed and stuff like that. But they had a wide range of music in my household. I'm very thankful for. And so I was exposed to some cool punk rock early on. And growing up, some of that stuff I liked, like everything that my folks listened to, I liked. But outside of that, like the stuff that I really latched onto as a little guy was metal. Like I loved Motley Crue and Metallica and Testament. And when I was really young, like 7, 8, 9, like it was like Twisted Sister and Motley Crue and that kind of thing. And as I got older, obviously more into heavier versions of heavy metal. But I wasn't a punk rock guy growing up. Like I think that SNFU was kind of one of the ones that I liked. The Clash I did, but I mean the Clash a lot of the time is more rock and roll even than punk rock to me.
It's my favorite band of all time.
Oh, there you go. So my folks loved the Clash and even saw the Clash a couple times here. And like my mom speaks about the Clash being like the greatest show she ever saw because it was just so insane.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish. Okay, so I'm gonna close it out. We're gonna close this thing out. I ask everybody this. I want your top 5 favorite bands. Top 5.
Top 5 favorite bands of all time.
Favorite bands of all time. Can be like new, old. It doesn't matter. But it's a really difficult question. So.
So David Bowie's number 1. David Bowie is probably my folks. They're the favorite. Their favorite of all time. That was what I was. I heard the most as a young guy. And I think lyrically and musically, he's probably the one who has influenced me the most. And aesthetically too, right? Just like the whole range of
the personas of Bowie, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Very influential on me. Motley Crue. As much as I don't really listen to Motley Crue a whole bunch now, as a young guy, that sort of changed me. That was something that was, that was my thing. That was my sort of rock gods or whatever. And, like
they were hard. They were tough though. I mean, let's be real. They were crazy.
Well, when the first time, like I heard "Shout at the Devil" when I was about 7 in my friend's basement, and he had so it wasn't just the pentagram cover; it was the 4 pictures cover of their faces.
Yeah.
The pentagram was in the inside, and I mean, I remember being in the basement, like at a sleepover, and kind of being a little bit scared about the music that we were listening to, and the dream, right? So that kind of stuff was super important to me at that point. Iron Maiden and Motley Crue. But yeah, Crue would be number 2. Number 3.
It gets harder as you go back, doesn't it?
Shai Hulud for sure. Shai Hulud certainly, because I think lyrically and musically they are, as I said, just super influential on what we did in Misery Signals. And I still look up to them to this day. I think that they are a trend-setting, fantastic, wonderful band.
Yeah.
4 and 5, man. Like this.
The fifth one is the hardest one because it's the one that can change so easily. You know, number 1 is easy. Everybody, Bowie is your guy, but like number 5 is gonna be tough.
I would have to say SNFU or the Smalls. Like, I mean, those were super influential bands on me as a teenager, and changed my life. So it's a hard choice between those two, man.
That can be both. That can be the two. Those can be the last two.
We'll accept those two both. Yeah, just two punk
yeah.
rock
That's
bands. Okay. Let's do that. SNFU is a punk rock band from Edmonton, Alberta that then went to Vancouver, and I suggest everybody that's listening checks them out. And the Smalls are a lesser known band that really were really quite big here in Western Canada, but just never transcended the border and never really got big out east in Canada either. They're an interesting band. They're kind of punk rock, kind of metal, and that singer is one of the greatest singers of all time. Like his voice is unreal. His name is Michael Caldwell. So check out the Smalls. They are a fantastic group as well.
That's a solid. You got the 5. You did it.
I did it, but that's a hard question, man.
I know. That's why I save it for the end, so you're tired and it takes a little longer. You know what I mean? I'm trying to catch you off guard here.
Thank you.
So before we go, I'm gonna punish you. I'm gonna tell you a story. When I was 14, the first show that I ever went to was a Misery Signal show, and it was with Remembering Never. I don't know if you remember this tour specifically. It was Remembering Never and Emery and you guys. And I don't think Malice had even come out yet.
Where is it?
It was in Manchester, New Hampshire, at a place called the Bomb Shelter.
Okay.
Do you actually remember that?
I think so. It's winter time.
Oh yeah, it was really cold.
Yeah, I think we had a really great snowball fight with Amir. No, not Amir. We had a really great snowball fight prior to that show. I believe if it's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
I don't know if Malice is out yet. Malice might just be out, or it might not be out, but that's a long time ago, man.
Yeah, that was the first show I went to, and I will tell you that it changed my life. So I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for that show. I was sincerely terrified, actually really, really scared. And that was the first show that I remember being like, wow, I have to keep doing this and keep getting really, really scared. So I wouldn't be here without you, and I wouldn't be here without Misery Signals. And so I really appreciate you doing this tonight. And it was an honor to talk to you, honor to meet you.
Well, thank you for having me, man. These things are intimidating and very scary for a guy like me. So
this one was scary. I was scared. You're scared. It's good. We did it together, though. We got through it, you know?
Yeah, it's live interviews are strange, you know?
They are, right?
I'm a socially anxious person, so to do this is a little frightening.
But it's nice to like meet a guy through the computer. You know what I mean? We're testing right now for the real life.
Ethan, you did a really good job, man, and I thank you
much
for having me on here and asking me some very worthwhile questions.
Thank you so much. I do my best. Well, Jesse, I appreciate it. Everybody go pre-order Ultraviolet. It's out August 7th, right?
Yes, and we'll have another new single and video coming out, I think next week. So
that's exciting. All right, well, everybody check that out, and everybody go buy the new record. And if you haven't heard Malice and Magnum Heart, you fucked up, so you should probably go listen to that. And Jesse, thank you so much for doing this, and I hope I meet you when COVID-19 isn't stopping us from both being in bands.
Yeah, I agree. It would be a wonderful thing.
Yeah, maybe we can play a show together sometime.
Yeah, that would be cool.
All right, man. Well, you have a good night, and thank you so much for being here.
You too. Thank you, everybody. Be nice. Peace. Take care.
Hell yeah. Thank you, guys, and thank you for watching. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Right on, man. Thank you.
Thanks, man.